My name is Lou Costello, and I am Chair of the Board of Trustees. This meeting of the Compensation Committee will now come to order. As a preliminary announcement, this meeting has been duly advertised as a public meeting in accordance with the Sunshine Act and is, therefore, open to members of the public as observers. Actual participation in the meeting is limited to members of the committee and to those the committee has invited in advance to take part. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube and is also being recorded. The recording will be made available via the Board of Trustees website later this week. As was announced, a quorum of the voting members of the Compensation Committee is present for the transaction of business at today's meeting. The minutes of the April 3rd, 2023 public meeting of the Compensation Committee were circulated in advance of today's meeting and were included in the meeting materials. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move it.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes, thank you. The minutes are circulated, stand approved. As permitted by the Sunshine Act, the Compensation Committee convened in executive sessions prior to today's meeting for the purpose of discussing certain matters associated with the performance and compensation of the university's officers. However, no actions were taken. As I believe you are all aware, it is routine for the Compensation Committee to meet in December to set the salaries for university officers for the upcoming calendar year. While salary increases for all other university employees are typically made early in the year, as a matter of practice, the Compensation Committee has chosen to defer consideration of the officers' compensation until later in the year to provide ample time to fully examine all measures of the institutional progress for the prior fiscal year. The Chancellor reported on the university's accomplishments and performance for the fiscal year 2023 at the fall board meeting of trustees held on September 29th, 2023. The Compensation Committee is responsible for determining the compensation of the Chancellor and, based on the Chancellor's recommendations, the compensation of other senior elected officers of the university. Because Chancellor Gable did not begin her tenure until after the conclusion of fiscal year 23, she is not eligible for a salary adjustment at this time. Accordingly, today, the committee is only considering the Chancellor's recommended salary increases for the other senior elected officers of the university. Chancellor Gable, would you now provide your report and recommendation on compensation for university officers?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. So as the chair referred to our last executive session, during that session, I reviewed for you my evaluation of the performance of the officers during the past fiscal year, which ended on June 30, 2023. As I began my position on July 17th, not surprisingly, that review was done by my predecessor, Chancellor Gallagher, before he departed. However, I would, based on my observations over these last 6 months, like to validate that the excellence that he saw in the performance of the officers of the university is aligned with what I've seen since being here. They're extremely effective and have a tremendous work ethic. And so based on this evaluation by Chancellor Gallagher and my own observations, I will be recommending that all of the officers who were in place during the last fiscal year receive a 4% increase to their base salary. If approved, these increases would be in effect as of January 1st, 2024. The analysis that I used in the 6 months since arriving are determined by the pre-existing guiding principles that were in place that are focused on the expectations for the university, what it means to be competitive, salary ranges based on peer groups, and pay positioning in alignment with compensation goals. These informed both Chancellor Gallagher's review and mine. Going forward, we will also be including the metrics and plan for Pitt and making specific evaluations of the officers of the university accordingly. In addition, and consistent with our previous discussions, I'd like to recommend that Paul Supowitz receive a one-time payment of $25,000 to compensate him for taking on the extra work of interim secretary of the board during this fiscal year, which he has done extremely well. And I know I speak for all of us when I say that we're very grateful. The last thing I'll mention is that we're in the process of finalizing an RFP to bring in a best practice review of compensation. We've been using a compensation consultant for the last 6 years, and so this RFP would allow us to refresh the process by which we identify that compensation consultant and ensure that that review is at top levels and relies upon best practice. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chancellor Gable. In advance of today's meeting, a resolution was circulated to members of the Compensation Committee that reflects the compensation adjustments discussed today. May I have a motion for approval of officer compensation for calendar year 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The resolution stands approved. Is there any new business to come before the committee? Since there's no new business, I'd like to thank the committee for your work over the past year and wish all of you the best for the remainder of the holidays in the new year. If there's no additional business, this meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chancellor.
Thank you, everybody.